Yeah. So here on the reporting for the CDS view, this is also one thing which we would know, which we should know, right? So we would be creating your CDS on top of a physical table, and then we would be consuming, a certain set of I would say a syntax. Let's call it as a syntax for the lack of a better word, called annotations. And these annotations are going to enable CDS function to do what it is supposed to do. Okay, so you most of you are having experience in one or the other IT technology, so nobody is completely new to IT. So with that assumption, let me relate this table to you. So I'm 100% sure that you would have created a table using any of the tool, right? You would have enhanced that particular table with an extra field. You would have loaded data into it. You would have done, multiple other objects, operations on that particular table. All those are GUI enabled. When I say GUI enabled, you can either drag and drop to it. Predominantly, it is GUI enabled. And then, if you are a DB expert, then you would be able to write an SQL scripts directly at the database language for you to do such activities. So, when we are talking about CDS view is something which is present on the application layer, and when it is going to be present on the application layer, it would talk to the HANA database, and then it would still the objects would be residing on the application layer, which is called as the data dictionary object, which is which means that you can see these objects in SE11 and SE16, so that it can be consumed by the other programs. Now, for this application layer to understand to its attributes, as to like what are the field descriptions, what are your table descriptions, and things like that. For everything we have an annotation, which then gets converted into a native script in the backend when we are talking about your HANA database, right? So it gets converted into that native script, and then it would do the DB operations as mentioned by the annotations over here. So it is not exactly an open SQL kind of a scenario, but then you can relate it to something similar to an open SQL. So which means your open SQLs are the one where you write an SQL independent of what your database is, and depending upon your database, when the operation goes to your database, it gets converted to the native SQL, and then the operation gets carried out. Okay, so that is the concept between the open SQL and native SQL. Here it is not an open SQL, so don't go ahead and tell in the interview that it is something like that. But what this is for your understanding only, where we say that we have an annotation. The annotations, we use a single every annotations to define how the whole CDS should behave. Example, it should have these fields, and the field should have these descriptions. If I'm adding a custom field, then it should have, this is the data type, this is your data length, and then your table should have this description. And then when the user executes that particular report, it should have a certain set of description, correct? So all these things which we were doing in the GUI enabled environment, we are now coming to a code enabled environment, correct? So that is what this an important takeaway from this particular slide is. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, and for us to consume CDS view, this is an important concept which we should learn. Your CDS content can be accessed through your BI suite and through your Fiori applications, right? So those who are familiar with what these are, for the benefit of others, I will just try to explain it a little bit. So Fiori is the trending technology that we use on S4 HANA. So whenever we talk about S4 HANA, especially for the analytics, most of the tiles or the reports what we generate, it's going to come to us as in the form of Fiori tiles, right? So you need not know a complete knowledge of Fiori, but you should know the basics as to how to expose your CDS view, and then create a KPI tile and keep it over there. So it is like similar to knowing ABAP for BW. You're not going to extensively work on ABAP, but then you should know your basic select statements, basic read statements, etc. Right? So this concept of theory and the knowledge, what you should know on theory is how to use your KPI modeler, how to use your query browser, and more importantly, how to expose my CDS view uh, into the theory apps. So in case if somebody asks you, I create a CDS model and I want to look at the data through my theory apps, then what should I do? Right? So in such scenarios, you directly say that we'll have to create an OData service, which is a gateway from the application server to the theory application. And these OData services can sometimes is expected to configure by us, and sometimes you would have an help to get that done either by a theory consultant or by a basis consultant. But what should be done is something which we should know so that we can always figure out, how to do it. Because you are not going to be the first person to struggle with a particular problem. There will be hundreds of people who've already, faced this problem, and there are a lot of discussions around these particular topics, especially in SAP. It is very, very active, where you can always Google and figure out how a certain topic needs to be done. So never get into a mind frame that this is outside my boundary of work. But even if it is outside your boundary of work, you should be able to give guidance for others. And that's when the how part evolves, and that's when you evolve as a developer, from a developer to an architect level. Correct. And then the other part is where we use the existing BI suite, which is very tightly integrated with any SAP system. In those BI tools, BI suite, we have tools like SAP Lumira Analysis for Office, which probably we will be looking into the one of the demos. And then we have ClickView, we have Design Studio, and all these is going to be combined and given to us through your BI analytical engine, correct? So that is something which we should know. So they're not going to ask you how you're going to connect, standard content to an SAP Luminar. That is not a question. The questions would be around on how you're going to connect it to theory, because that is something extra what you do, and this is already taken care by the analytical engine. So all we need to know is to expose the consumption view, which we will be telling you, and then once you do that, we would be able to see that particular structure output directly in these tools. Correct.